Kerbal Space Program has seen quite the influx of new players in the wake of Artemis II. I mean, it's in the top sellers list on Steam, Steam player counts are higher than the game has ever had before, and places like the KSP subreddit have been flooded with new players sharing their first successful orbits and moon landings. And it got me all nostalgic, you know? So I ended up flicking through some of my screenshots that I took during my very first milestones, like my first ever rocket that reached orbit, my first space shuttle, and my first successful Duna lander that could return its crew to Kerbin, at least. And I thought, hey, wouldn't it be kind of fun to recreate that mission and see how well the craft holds up? The answer to that question is terribly, actually, but I don't want to spoil things. I did then realise that new players might click on this video as a means of trying to learn how to do a Duna mission. So I thought, firstly, don't do that. This is not a tutorial. This is a terrible example of a Duna mission. But I also thought that maybe to atone for the terribleness of the mission, I would then follow it up and do another Duna and Ike mission with a craft that I think would be perfect for beginners. So that's going to be like the second half of this video, and that's also why this video's runtime is as long as it is. And that's going to be a direct ascent mission that doesn't require the need for fiddling around with orbital rendezvous and all that. Which, of course, is different to the craft that I'm currently recreating, which is Apollo style. We have this separate lander that departs from an orbiting command ship, descends to the Duna surface, and then returns and redocks with the command ship. And I've just removed the mystery goo units from the side of the Science Junior, as I realised that the original ship appears to actually have big monopropellant tanks there, for some reason, because there's no visible RCS-like blocks present. I had to swap the extending solar panels to the retractable kind as well, so they'd survive atmospheric flight. The reason that I have the non-retracting ones in the reference pic is because back then, both kinds of solar panel could be retracted. It was later changed in early access. Now I'm building the command ship, which has this weird setup of a 2.5 meter tank flanked by two nuclear engines, but the only fuel tanks here are the liquid fuel and oxidizer tanks, not the liquid fuel only ones, which are the far more sensible choice for the nuclear engines. The reason for this is because back then the nuclear engine did indeed also require oxidizer to work. Again, it was only later on that it was changed to liquid fuel only. And that is the recreation of the craft complete. I sadly did not have any additional screenshots of what the rest of the vehicle looked like, including the launch vehicle, so I had to sort of just guess from here, and I'm pretty sure this was built, like the original one was built, before fairings were a thing in Kerbal Space Program. I'm adding a fairing here because in modern KSP it's pretty much necessary. However, as you can see, I started off using the 3.75 meter parts, but then I remembered, actually, those might not have been added to the game when I built the original rocket. Then I went back and deleted that, and now I'm building this skinnier rocket built from the 2.5 meter diameter parts. I then added a couple of kickback boosters, as well as some Separatrons hidden in their nose cones to kind of give the craft an extra bit of thrust-to-weight ratio. Well, to give it enough high enough thrust-to-weight ratio so that it can indeed clear the launch pad. And looking at the time-lapse, I'm adding the launch clamps now, which is a good indication that the construction of the rocket is complete. And we can cross-fade to the map screen and make sure that we are indeed launching at a Kerbin to Duna transfer window, which people might not know if they're new to this channel. There are lots of new players among us. So basically, if you draw a line from Kerbin to the sun to Duna, the angle that line forms at the sun should be about 45 degrees. Now, I would highly recommend using something like Transfer Window Planner. You can Google Kerbal Transfer Window Planner. It will tell you exactly when to launch properly, but I like being lazy and doing it by eye, and it, seems to work out for me okay. So, yeah, that's just my top tip. Again, this is not a tutorial, so do not treat it as such. And now let's launch. And we are off. I'm going to speed the footage up a little bit just so keep the video flowing, because again it's got quite a long run time. But even before I sped the footage up, the rocket, the frame rate was pretty good, which I'm sure was not the case when I flew this rocket the first time all those years ago. I mean, it wasn't even this rocket. I have literally no memory of what the rocket looked like, but I do remember the laptop I was running KSP on. It was so basically people in the comments saying, I don't know if my PC could run the game and all that. And I'm like, your PC could almost certainly run the game, because mine could, and I could make YouTube videos of the game, albeit I just do a lot of speeding up of the footage to make the frame rate look good in editing software. My laptop, let me think, it was a laptop, right? So it had a mobile graphics card. Oh, there go the side boosters. It had a mobile graphics card. I believe it was an NVIDIA GeForce GT640M. So not even a GTX card, so before RTX there was GTX, and it wasn't even up to GTX spec. And the processor It was an Intel something. I remember the clock speed was like 1.7 gigahertz. That's all I really remember about what the CPU was. And it had 6 gigabytes of RAM. So it wasn't good. It certainly didn't run the game well, but it ran the game well enough for me to put in hundreds, if not thousands of hours and have a wonderful time playing it. I had so much fun playing it that I decided to make videos on YouTube, and now that's like that was 10 years ago. So I think it's been going pretty good. I mean, you know, I used the funds raised by those videos to build myself a better PC. So there you go. The moral of the story is just start playing Kerbal Space Program with a rubbish laptop, and then just make YouTube videos, and then one day you can use those YouTube videos. Kerbal Space Program can buy you a computer. At least that's how it worked for me. I don't know if it will work the same for everyone else. So I can see that we have now staged the core of the first stage. I know people say it's not technically the first stage. Technically the first stage was the side boosters. But, you know, whatever. The first stage core has now gone. And in fact, it took me so long to get that sentence out that we've almost finished burning with our upper stage. In fact, now we have. As you can see, the ascent profile here was not the best. It's not usually ideal to have flames lapping the sides of the rocket. On your ascent, that usually means you're a bit too low and going a bit too fast for your altitude height. But again, this isn't a tutorial, and this craft was kind of rubbish, and so kind of fitting, really, that I did a terrible job flying it. Now, one kind of regret I have is because when I was building this, I'll put the reference image up again, I was looking at this saying, why did I build the craft like that? Like, why did I have the 2.5 meter tank in the middle, with the 2 nuclear engines weirdly positioned on the side like this? And after doing some thinking, and sadly after I finished filming this video, so bit too late, I realized what I probably did when I, built the original craft is what I'm showing in that little second gameplay window at the top right. Having each tank supply the entire craft, staging when it was empty, leaving the rocket still fully fueled, kind of like a linear asparagus setup almost. Of course, back then I didn't really care about leaving debris left in deep space, something I now, of course, very deeply, often to my detriment, care about and try and avoid doing, which is probably why setting up the rocket with that aforementioned staging setup never actually occurred to me when I built my modern recreation that I'm flying in this video. It also probably explains why this vehicle is vastly less capable than its original. In my original, the lander could do at least 2 separate Duna surface missions from Duna orbit and then do an Ike landing as well, helped by the fact that the Terrier and Ant engines shared the same exact fuel as the nuclear engine, so the 2 ships could share fuel between them and transfer fuel back and forth, which isn't the case today because, of course, the nuclear engine does not require oxidizer, so it's harder to balance the craft, so to speak. And the fact that I probably had way more fuel in the command stage because, again, I probably had those stageable tanks that may or may not have been used to refill the lander's tanks after each surface mission. So I guess all I can say is whoops. I mean, in my defense, I did not have that much time to make this video. I know I usually make this excuse, I didn't have much time to make videos this week, so I had to rush this one. That wasn't actually the case this week. It's just the video that I was working on is a really, really big one, and I really wanted to come out well, and I was kind of approaching the 11th hour for when I need to upload a video for Saturday, or at least have the video finished, ready for Saturday. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to get this finished on time, at least to a level of quality that I'm satisfied with. So what else could I do? And then I kind of thought, well, there's lots of new players to KSP, so wouldn't it be nice to think about when I was a new player and have a look at what I did when I was a new player? Maybe I can get some inspiration from that. And that's when I found that, those screenshots of my original Duna lander. And yeah, I mean, I must admit it wasn't my very, very first Duna lander. I'm pretty sure my very first one was a direct ascent vehicle, but I just don't have any screenshots of it, so I have no idea. But I do have this one. I do remember doing it. I do remember I was at university, so I was very young, so I did it on my laptop as well, and so I kind of remember enough about this specific lander that it was fairly early on in my days as a player of Kerbal Space Program. It's just a shame I can't remember anything about the rocket, right? And yeah, that's it. As you can see, we now have our Duna encounter. Again, although I said that this isn't meant to be a tutorial, I feel like I have a lot of new viewers, so potentially there are people here who've never seen a Duna mission before and still want to watch the video, despite the fact that I've kind of advised against using this as a tutorial to try and get some tips and tidbits and advice. on how to get from Kerbin to Duna. So, I mean, the way I can get a Duna encounter from low Kerbin orbit is basically make a maneuver node that's about, I always forget exactly how much it's meant to be. It's between about 1,100 to 1,300 meters per second of delta V. Just make that, and then I basically grab the center of the maneuver tool and then just spin it around my low Kerbin orbit until I can get an encounter that's close enough on the map screen. And then once I've got the two little grey separation nodes between my spacecraft and Duna, I then play around with prograde and retrograde to try and get a Duna encounter. Duna is at a slightly inclined orbit around the sun compared to Kerbin, or vice versa, and so you do need to do a mid-course correction burn, which is what I'm doing here. I'm burning in, this is the normal vector, basically we're burning up. That's a really scientific way. Of course, there is no up in space, right? But you know what I mean. Relative. I'm changing my inclination is what I'm doing here. So we get a nice encounter. Well, usually I aim for an equatorial orbit around Duna, but this time I was like, I'm going to try and go for a tilted orbit to make things a bit more challenging, a bit more interesting for the video. And also, this makes it easier to do a second Duna. So landing once on I guess just the normal Duna Midlands, and then another landing at the Duna North Pole was my idea, because in my screenshots folder I've got a picture of this lander both on like the red Duna plains and also at the Duna pole. So I'm like, I must have enough delta V to do both. So clearly I didn't do any testing whatsoever, but I didn't have enough fuel to do a second Duna landing. So we're going to do the one Duna landing, and then we're going to do a landing at Ike as well. Probably in retrospect, thank goodness, right? Because this video is 7 centuries long. And here I am doing an aero brake, which is something, again, I often try and avoid doing these days because it kind of feels a bit wrong, right? Probably not the best to have our nuclear-powered engines being exposed to the brunt of atmospheric entry from interplanetary speeds, no less. But I guess Duna's atmosphere is quite thin, luckily, and I did do a bit of a stealth quick save quick load that you guys wouldn't have seen. Basically, I initially circularized by burning my engines and realized I did not have enough delta V to get back to Kerbin. So I had to load an earlier quick save and do it again, but aero capture. And now we have indeed aero captured. And look, it's clearly not my first Duna mission in this save file, because we have a surface base and an orbiting space station, as well as a handful of landing site, like landing flags on the surface of Duna as well. But let's pretend those don't exist, and we are indeed forging away for Kerbal Kind, our first ever interplanetary landing. So, I mean, I should probably say the video that I was working on really hard, that I've decided to push back to make it kind of as best as it could possibly be, and I'm doing this one instead in its place, is basically like a load of tips for Kerbal Space Program. So it started out as a top 10 tips for KSP, but I kept on writing tips, and it's now currently at top 70. It's literally like half an hour long of me just going through loads of tips you can do. So it's like, number 1, you can do this. Number 2, number 3. It's like that. So it's quite edit heavy, you know. So yeah, I really hope it comes out well. I think there's going to be lots of tips and tricks that will be applicable to not just new players, but old players as well. So there should be something for everyone. By the way, that was the tour. That was the tour of the spacecraft that Arkel has been sitting in for 330 days at this point. But you know, Kerbals, they're made of stronger stuff than you and I. They don't mind being confined to the smallest of command pods, or even just deck chairs strapped to the sides of rockets for decades, centuries, millennia, if needs be. Because Kerbals love space, they love being in space, that's all they really need. I gave them a book as well, just one book. It's a Biff and Chip book, not very long, but you know, they can reread it, it's fine. Anyway, as you can see, we have now performed our deorbit burn with our lander. Jebediah Kerman is ready to become the first space frog to step foot on another planet's surface. So, yeah, there's his view. What a brave guy. So, yeah, one of the things I didn't include in my top 70, it sounds ridiculous to say top 70, doesn't it? My top 70 tips was like the best thing for beginners to do. I have thought, and please let me know in the comments what you think of this, of doing a really short, I know I've just done Lowne Aerospace 3, but doing a kind of Lowne Aerospace 3.5 or Lowne Aerospace 4 or something like that, where it would be like 2 or 3 videos max, where basically this is the best way to unlock the tech tree as a beginner. So all of the missions will be direct ascent. None of them will require docking, because that's kind of considered one of the higher skills that you need to KSP. Like, it is required to do things like a Tyler or an Eve mission, but it's not essential for like a Duna or Mun or even like a Minmus mission, as will be evidenced in this video as I do my direct ascent Duna mission. But yeah, they'll all be direct ascent, and it'll be like maximizing science. So usually when I do my science mode playthroughs, by the way, we've landed on Duna. I didn't talk about it, but I feel like the video showcase that alright. I didn't think there was anything I needed to add, although I will say we had this weird kind of, you can see the lander sort of glitching into these surface rocks a bit. These are from the Parallax mod, and I was a bit worried we get some phantom forces blowing up one of our landing legs, so I decided to do a quick hop to another location so we can have a more stable kind of situation for our lander. Anyway, yeah, so like Lander Aerospace 3.5 or whatever it ends up being called, it would be like maximizing science. So normally when I do a science mode playthrough, I put restrictions on myself to make it more interesting for the viewer at home. So I can only gather science from like one location on each planet or moon, which means I don't get as much science from each of my missions. And it also means that I have to visit lots of different places. I can't keep going back to Minmus and farming science from there. But in reality, you wouldn't really play the game like that. You would probably do multiple landings on Minmus to get lots and lots of science. Then you go to the Mun, do lots and lots of landings on different locations on the Mun to get more and more science from that. And yeah, I mean, technically, if you want to, you can unlock the entire KSP science mode tech tree by never leaving the Kerbin system. Like, you can get enough science from Kerbin, Minmus, and Mun to fully unlock the tech tree. Obviously, that wouldn't be that exciting for a playthrough, and obviously, I think for players, they'd probably get bored going to the Mun and Minmus over and over again. There is my flag, by the way. This is the flag I used to use back in day. It's the original file as well, so yes, my Union flag. Yeah, so this has been a really long-winded explanation, but I promise I'm nearly done. Oh, this little shot here, I'm recreating one of the screenshots in that screenshot folder. It's one of the shots I just really liked, just a Kerbal staring off across the vastness of the Duna plains. Anyway, managed to interrupt myself again, despite the fact I was saying I was about to get to the crux of what I'm trying to describe with my hypothetical Lowne Aerospace 3.5 series, and that is, we would do a direct ascent mission to Minmus and biome hop around Minmus, gathering lots and lots of science. Then we do another mission going to Mun, bio hopping around Mun, and then going to like Duna, but it would be like easy stuff that beginners can recreate. It won't be like a full-on tutorial, because I feel like I've done tutorials to death at this point, but it's like just a play along. So like a nice, easy direct ascent mission that you can take to Duna and land on Ike as well, because it's fun. It's just fun for beginners. You haven't got to worry about complicated things like docking and all that, even though I would highly recommend it, because the game, like, not being on a dock does soft lock you in this game. Like, you can do a direct ascent Tyler mission and you can do a direct ascent Eve mission, but it's vastly more difficult and complicated, and it's just a lot more satisfying, I think, to be able to do in-orbit docking. So, yeah, that would be my recommendation. But that would be my idea for Lowne Aerospace 3.5. So, like, you know, do a Minmus mission, Mun mission, Duna mission that includes Ike, and then that's probably it. That'll probably be enough to unlock the full tech tree. If I did another landing, it would most likely be Elu or like a dual flyby. They're kind of like the next steps after a Duna landing. I mean, if I was recommending players like where to aim for, places like Eve look quite tempting because it's a pretty looking planet in my opinion, and it's quite close to Earth, well, you know, close to Kerbin, but it's very, very difficult. It's considered generally the final boss of the game, that and Tylo. Had a bit of a whoops flying my lander just here. It sort of flipped over because it has the aerodynamic properties of a shed, so we have to sort of carefully fly it back so we're pointing prograde, but also I have to point somewhat kind of not along the 90-degree vector so that we do indeed line up with the orbit of our orbiting command ship. So yeah, my advice to beginners would be, obviously the first milestone to aim for would be low Kerbin orbit. After that, it's definitely Minmus. Always aim for Minmus. That's one of the tips in the tip video, actually, is Minmus is easier than the Mun. Even though the Mun is closer and it's technically easier to get an encounter with because it's not in an inclined orbit around Kerbin, that's where the easiness of the Mun ends. After that, it's much harder to land on, much harder to take off from. Minmus is far, far, far more forgiving. I cannot recommend Minmus over Mun enough, basically. If you're just starting out, there will come a point where, like, there's not really much difference in terms of difficulty. When you're just starting out, Minmus is infinitely more easy. No, infinitely easier than going to the Mun. After you've conquered Minmus, then the next logical step would be the Mun. Then I would say Duna, or Eve, but have it be a non-return mission to send like a rover or like a little science robot. I mean, or a Kerbal if you're a evil person. But yeah, Eve is really, really easy to land on and get to. It's just impossible to get back from. Doing like an unmanned one-way mission to Eve or Duna, and then try and do a Duna return mission. And then after you can do Duna, you can kind of do most of the game. Most of the rest of the game is just like a Duna mission, but with extra steps. So like going to a moon of Jool, for example, you first of all need to get in orbit around Jool, and then do lots of maneuvers to get yourself on an encounter with one of its moons, and then, you know, land on said moon, etc., etc. And places like Eeloo and Moho, they're kind of the same as Duna. You just need a lot more Delta V to get there. So that's kind of the progression. And then the last, so kind of easy tier is Minmus and Mun. Mid tier would be like your Duna, your Drez. Actually, you know what? I would just put Duna in the mid tier. Then you got the hard tier. I would put Drez, Eeloo, and Moho in this tier. And then extra hard tier would be Jool and the three of its Jool moons. So I'm trying to remember what they're called. This is good, isn't it? Yeah, so it would be Val, Pol, and Bop. And then extra hard would be the two Jool moons, Lathe and Tylo. And then expert mode final boss would be Eve. I don't think I've missed any Oh, there's Gilly. Gilly is one of the planets. Gilly is the moon of Eve. It's dead easy. It's kind of boring. You can go there if you want. Put that like above the same tier as Duna. I don't know. That's my advice for beginners. That very incoherent stream of consciousness. And you better get used to that sort of commentary on this channel if you're here to stick around, because that's it. You know, I try my best, but my commentaries do end up sort of going off the rails rather easily. Now here we are. See, we're rendezvousing with our mothership. There it is. My gosh, I wish it had more fuel tanks. I can't believe it never occurred to me that that's almost certainly why I have the nuclear engines mounted to the side like that, so I can have stageable tanks underneath. Yeah, it's just I just haven't built rockets like that in so long that it just never occurs to me. Especially rockets that have these diameter fuel tanks. Usually I use the Mark 1 size liquid fuel tanks for any kind of nuclear ship, because the nuclear engines, they only require liquid fuel, and the Mark 1 size liquid fuel tank, I believe, has the best liquid fuel amount to mass ratio, certainly compared to the Mark 3 size parts. So I thought, let's try and do another Duna landing. So I refilled our lander and then quickly realized that the mothership would not have enough fuel left to indeed return to Kerbin. So I thought, well, let's just get Bob Kerbin out on EVA. He can restore the Science Junior and Mystery Goo experiment units. That's another one of the tips as well, is that the Science Kerbal, well, actually I'll just explain in the tip video what all the Kerbal types do and why there are different Kerbal types. So Bob Kerbin is a scientist. He can restore the Mystery Goo and Science Junior experiment units. Normally those units can only be used once and then they can't be used again, but a scientist can restore them, and you can run more science experiments. So there we are. Yeah, so I think at this point you can see me just clicking things. I'm trying to work out how much fuel I have, and yeah, I've obviously now reached the conclusion that we really don't have enough fuel to do another Duna landing. We'll just go to Ike instead. So now I'm setting up a maneuver node that's going to get us an encounter with Ike, and Ike is super duper easy to land on. It's kind of, it's slightly harder than Minmus, but barely. Like, it's in the same kind of caliber as Minmus in terms of how easy it is to land on, because it's got very, very low surface gravity. So you'll be coming in nice and slow. You'll have plenty of time to react and adjust your speed, and it's very hard. It's very hard to crash land on, basically. Not saying it can't be done, because I have experience of that, but it's very easy, basically. But it's got some very interesting surface features, courtesy of the mod Parallax. If you want a list of all the mods, because obviously this does not look like a stock install of Kerbal Space Program, I would hope you would agree it looks vastly superior. And that's because I've got a bunch of visual mods installed. You can go to the video description down below to see a full list of them. I know despite me saying this, I will still get lots of comments asking me what the mods are. The mods are always in the video description, guys. Just before you ask any YouTuber, we do put things in our video descriptions, and you can often find answers to questions like that in the video descriptions. So there's one of my top tips. Maybe I should include that in my top tips video. All of the Matt Lowne videos have a mod list in the description, and sometimes I even link downloads to certain mods if they're like a focal point of the video. For example, last week I built a space station using mods, and I linked the mods that I used, like the parts mods I used, in the description. So I used the Shuttle Orbiter mod by BenG10, as well as the Redirect Companion mod, and the Stocker-like Station Parts Redux mod. I always forget exactly what that mod is called, because it's got such a long-winded name, but I'm pretty sure that's it. And as you can see, oh look, you know, I said earlier, there are some interesting surface features courtesy of the mod Parallax. Well, there they are. They're kind of like those red spikes. There you go, I can see them now there. They're really cool. They have collision, which is great. I actually messaged Lynx, who is the developer of the mod Parallax, before I started recording this commentary, because I was like, you know what, hey, I might just ask. I sent him a message saying, I'm just making a video where I go to Ike, and I thought I might ask if the big red Parallax features on it are based on something in real life, and if so, what? And he replied saying they are not. So there you are. They are actually based on the old plutonium deposits in No Man's Sky before it became carbon. So they are. If you play No Man's Sky, that's what they're... Do they look the same? Let me know. I don't play No Man's Sky. I played it in 2018, thought it was absolutely terrible, and then refunded it. That was like before the game was like fixed. I actually bought it again. I keep forgetting I own it. I bought it specifically for YouTube as well. I'm like, my girlfriend Beth, you should buy it as well. And then we could do like a couples playthrough of No Man's Sky. This was like a year and a half ago, and I keep forgetting that I have that game. I bought quite a lot of games to play on YouTube, and I always just forget. I get overwhelmed by my Steam library. I'm like, I don't know, and then I just go downstairs and play on my PlayStation instead. I've been having a lot of fun playing Yakuza 7, actually. So, Like a Dragon. What a game. What a brilliant game. I remember playing Yakuza 0 on PC, and I loved it. It was great. And then, once I beat the game, I didn't have played any more Yakuza games. And now I'm playing Yakuza 7. I'm like, why didn't I play any more Yakuza games? Because they're brilliant. I think the one problem with Yakuza 0 is I didn't really get that invested in the side quests. I tried to avoid doing too many side quests and all the side missions and the business management because I was so invested in the main plot. I just wanted to see what happened next. And so I kind of slept on kind of the main appeal of the Yakuza games, which are the ridiculous side missions. But this time in Like a Dragon, I'm just doing everything, and the side missions are brilliant, and it makes me want to go back and play Yakuza 7 and get really stuck into like the business management side of things. Yeah, I cannot recommend the Yakuza games enough. And if you are like me, where, you know, you enjoyed Yakuza 0 and Kiwami and all that, but you're a bit turned off by, you know, Yakuza 7 Like a Dragon and beyond, because they changed from the brawler combat to turn-based combat, because I, for one, I really, really do not like turn-based combat. Don't worry, because the turn-based combat is good. It's really fun. I wouldn't say I like turn-based combat overall, but this game has made me more open to it. So like games like, what was it? That French game, Expedition 33? It was like Claire Obscure. So I never bothered playing. As soon as I found out it was turn-based combat, my interest dropped down to like, I don't know, the floor. I was like, I have got zero interest in this game. And now I've played a turn-based combat game that I like. I'm like, maybe I'll like it. The other turn-based game that I like, and this is a very unknown game, is Undertale. That has turn-based combat as well. And I never thought I could like another turn-based combat game, because Undertale just did it so well. Like, this is the best way to do turn-based combat, because it's not even really turn-based. Like, I always disliked the fact that like my characters get injured during turn-based combat. I'm like, this is a skill issue. If I was controlling the characters and this is a real fight, then I could do this without taking any damage, in theory, right? People have beaten the whole of Dark Souls without taking a single hit, whereas it is literally impossible to do that in a turn-based combat game, because you're just at the mercy of RNG, and I don't like being at the mercy of RNG. But Yakuza Like a Dragon is good, so I would recommend. And Undertale is good because you can actually control your character during the other character's turn. You can actually dodge all their attacks. So Undertale, you know, it is possible to do the entire game without taking any damage. I think. I don't know. There's maybe a cutscene event that makes you take damage, but I don't think there is. Yeah, that was my discussion of the Yakuza games instead of to do this video. Like I said, the whole conversation started because, well, I say conversation, just random speech into a microphone and you guys just listening to it, began because I said I've bought loads of games on Steam to play for YouTube, and then just never I forgot I owned them, basically. Trying to think, what else did I buy? I've got Space Engineers 2! Just looking at my Steam library, I forgot that game even had a sequel. I think it came out and everyone was like, it's kind of good, but not as good as the original, so we'll just wait for it to become good. I don't know if it's had updates now, so it's on par with the original, or at least very close to it. I know it's certainly no KSP 2. You know, if there are any new people watching, one of the tips in the video as well is that you might discover that this game has a sequel, but do not buy it because it is abandoned and it's inferior to KSP 1 in essentially every single way. The only way it's better is it has faster loading times and it has better sound design. And that's basically it. Kerbal animations are nice as well. Now I'm just ditching the lander because we didn't have enough fuel in our mothership to carry it home with us. And, oh, here's the explosion coming up. Yeah, the docking port survived, so we could just watch that tumble through space for a bit. Yeah, we didn't have enough fuel in our mothership to carry the lander home with us, but I didn't want to leave it just floating in space forever, just as debris, so we've deorbited it, and I don't know what that docking port was made of that allowed it to explode like that. I assumed a hunk of metal would be fairly inert when crashing into the surface of a celestial body, but apparently it had some sort of combustible materials within its construction. But now, of course, we can close our forward shielded docking port now that we have nothing more to dock to, and we can get ready to go home. And I was being stupid. I don't know what was wrong with me, guys. I was trying to get an encounter with Kerbin and I couldn't. So I was just time warping randomly, making a maneuver node and trying to get... And I was like, why didn't I just time warp to a Duna to Kerbin transfer window? Which is basically the same as a Kerbin to Duna transfer window, but like the other way around. I just wasn't thinking straight. I think, again, I was kind of stressing out about the fact that the video I wanted to get made wasn't made, and so I now had to, at the 11th hour, make another video. And so, yeah, I think I wasn't in the right headspace. So what we end up doing is a really long and inefficient burn that's going to take us years to get back to Kerbin, when really I could have just time warped to a Duna to Kerbin transfer window and got home a lot quicker and probably for less Delta V as well. I can only apologize, guys. Again, this is not meant to be a tutorial video. In fact, it's turning out to be quite the opposite. It's showing me how I've somehow regressed as a player. When I built the original craft, it could do multiple Duna landings and an Ike landing, and I assume could get back home pretty easily. Now I'm a big, famous celebrity Kerbal Space Program creator, and I'm terrible. I mean, I don't want to sound like celebrity is a sort of a self-congratulatory type, more like a Z-lister, right? But I've been recognized very, very occasionally on the streets, so that must count for something, right? What I'm saying is, this fame is very much undeserved, it would seem, because I did a terrible job. Again, that's kind of why I finished filming this mission, and I was like, man, I can't just leave it there. I've got to atone in some way and do this again, but like good. So as you can see, we're kind of, I think we're past the half. Oh, actually, I'm zooming out. We're actually exactly on the halfway mark, but we're not home yet. So it's going to be like less than half the runtime is going to be the makeup mission, and it's going to be easier for beginners. It's direct ascent, so you can play along and follow the build. And hey, if you're a Patreon or a YouTube channel member, then you'll have your own version of this video with no ads on it, and there'll be a link to download the craft file in the video description. But speaking of the craft file used, not just in this mission, but in the makeup mission I do in a second, I was very deliberate to not use any parts mods, but also no DLC parts either. So I didn't have the making history or breaking ground DLC parts enabled in the vehicle assembly building when I built this, so you don't even need the DLC for this to work. And again, the same will be the case for when we do the makeup mission in just a second. I said that really loudly. I hope that don't blow out anyone's headphones. Yeah, while I'm on this, I don't like talking too much about my Patreon and YouTube members programs because I don't really like splitting up my audience based on disposable income, which is kind of the reason why I don't try make too much exclusive content for Patreon and YouTube members. I feel like early access and ad-free access to videos and getting the craft file, I feel like that's a fair enough compromise, because if you don't have access to the craft files, you would still see the time-lapse build. And in fact, I would actually recommend, if you want to just fly an exact ship of mine, is to actually just try and recreate it from the time-lapse, because then you will learn and get better with KSP's building editor. I mean, that's how I kind of like built crafts, what I saw on YouTube. Again, this is like 2013, 2014, where craft file sharing wasn't really so much of a thing. In fact, it wasn't 2013, it was 2014 I started playing the game, I think. So I would just build craft based on what I saw in videos, or maybe I didn't know how to download craft files, I was stupid, I'm not sure. But yeah, so I kind of recommend trying to build things for yourself and tailoring crafts to be more suitable for what you want to get out of them. But, you know, if you're a Patreon YouTube channel member, then you get access to the downloads for the craft files. But again, yeah, like I say, I don't like talking too much about it because it's kind of a contentious topic, and maybe for some. So, yes, that's in conclusion. We have arrived at Kerbin. Again, that wasn't a conclusion to anything I've said so far, but the mission has concluded. So the mission is concluding with a splashdown in... oh, I haven't got the biome name visible. But yeah, we're coming over the ocean, splashing. Now, it's always satisfying having a splashdown landing in Kerbal Space Program. I always hope to get a splashdown because it seems a bit more realistic. I guess China and Russia land on land, don't they? But this is a NASA-style command pod, which is, you know, they splash down in the ocean. So that's nice. Anyway, we can recover it, and there is the science we earned. Yeah, I mean, I've already been to Duna on this save file, so there wasn't really much science to be gained, or there wasn't a need for the science to be gained, honestly, because I have the tech tree fully unlocked. But just in case anyone wanted to see it, that was it. Now we're building the makeup craft. So it's called the Easy Duna. And yeah, it does what it says on the tin. It's going to be a direct ascent, no orbital rendezvous skills required here, and it's just going to be easy in theory. In reality, I ended up almost running out of fuel, but it doesn't matter because I did a Duna and an Ike landing, and you could just do one mission with this to Ike and then one mission with this to Duna, and then you will have plenty of fuel. And also when I went to Duna, I did not aero capture. I did an engine burn because I was feeling arrogant, I guess. So you could save a bunch of fuel by aero capturing around Duna. Now, this is the actual Duna lander, and it's kind of two-stage. We've got these drop tanks on the sides. These are going to be what's going to get us almost to Duna orbit. We then stage, and then the craft will be left fully fueled with enough fuel left to not only land on Ike, but also then get back to Kerbin, re-enter safely and all that. And we've got that service bay. You might have missed it because the time lapse going quite fast, but the service bay is loaded up with all of the science. So all the science experiments. Not all of them, actually. I don't think it has the atmospheric thing. It doesn't have the magnetometer, but whatever. It has a lot of science, put it that way. And then because this is modern KSP, I'm not recreating something from over a decade ago, as scary as it is to say that out loud. We have modern KSP, right, so we can actually build a sensible nuclear engine stage just using liquid fuel tanks. So that's that there all built. And then for the rest of the rocket, I thought, you know what? Now I know for a fact that the 3.75 meter parts are a thing, because, you know, yeah. We could use the larger diameter fuel tanks to build the rest of the rocket. We've got to paint it orange, right? And we're going to make it look a bit like SLS, you know. SLS is kind of the reason why my channel, and indeed this game, has received so much extra traffic. Although, you know, because KSP is a lot easier than real life, we don't need the additional side boosters on our SLS rocket to make it to orbit and indeed beyond. So there it is on the launch pad. And I didn't actually check if I was at a Duna transfer window, because I already kind of was at one. If anything, we're just past the Duna transfer window. To my eye, eyeballing it at least, Duna doesn't look quite 45 degrees ahead of Kerbin. It looks slightly less than that, but it was close enough, and I knew I had enough fuel on this thing to kind of brute force my way through a less efficient transfer window, put it that way. So let's launch. Yeah, let's go ahead and speed that footage up there, because this thing was not the fastest thing off the pad. But don't worry, as our fuel runs lower, we will indeed pick up speed. And in fact, I have to throttle down that mammoth engine for a lot of the ascent, because we were going too fast, too low in the atmosphere. Didn't want to repeat it before. We ended up getting like flames appearing along the sides of the rocket. That wouldn't be very realistic, would it? I guess what I could have done to make this slightly more realistic was have some sort of launch escape system for our Kerbals. They are, of course, at the moment entombed in that fairing, and so if anything fails with the rocket, they're doomed, basically. But, you know, launch escape systems, they're not essential in Kerbal Space Program, because of course you can revert the flight to launch or revert the flight to vehicle assembly building. But, you know, some people like playing realistically, and that they don't have that option, so they want to put it in. But I just thought I'd keep this simple. Again, this is kind of meant to be almost like an inspiration for newer players. I know or like 36 minutes ago, I was saying, this is not for new players, don't watch this video. But now I'm saying, hey, new players, hey, hope you stuck around 40 minutes longer so then I could get to the point where I could say, hey, maybe this would be good for beginners. And so I didn't want to make the build too complicated in terms of like if you're trying to follow step by step in the time lapse. So let's not make it complicated by adding unnecessary things like the launch escape system. That sounded really like authoritarian. Like, we don't need unnecessary things like crew safety measures. We could just get more disposable space frogs if this crew were to have a bit of a whoops, let's call it that, and avoid getting demonetized. I mean, there are examples of real life space launches where there was no launch escape system for the crew. So this isn't entirely, you know, unrealistic. Obviously, a very famous example of a spacecraft that did not have launch escape system was the space shuttle. The other one, there was like the earlier Soviet missions as well. I can't remember exactly which ones. That didn't have maybe like the early Soyuz missions. I think I would have to look it up, but I'm not going to. So someone can put in the comments if I'm wrong. But there were some early Soviet missions where there was no means of launch escape if something went wrong during ascent. And I guess, you know, Starship, it's looking like that's not going to have a launch escape system. So yeah, potentially this isn't, you know, too unrealistic here. And as you can see, we have long ago now spent our first stage, and now we have an apoapsis that's nice and high. I aim for an apoapsis of 100 kilometers just because that seemed like a nice round number to aim for, right? And now we can deploy our fairings now that we are very, very high up in the atmosphere. Only about 7 kilometers shy of the Kármán line, or, you know, the edge of the border where the atmosphere ends and space begins. And it'll be like, oh, actually, Kármán line can only refer to Earth. Well, let's call it the Kerbin line, whatever. I don't know if it actually has a name in Kerbal Space Program, but whatever. We're now in space, so let's move on from that weird blunder of a sentence I just tried attempting there. And yeah, there we are, plotting a maneuver to circularize. I always like staging my upper stages, so the one I've just ditched, just before we reach a stable orbit so that it ends up re-entering the atmosphere and burning up. I know that's only a hypothetical in Kerbal Space Program. I can't remember exactly what the cutoff is, but I feel like it's about, I think if your perigee is 50 kilometers or higher, you won't actually enter the atmosphere and be destroyed. KSP will just put you in a stable orbit. So I think I have quite a lot of debris in space because of this, even though I always try and stage stuff so that it will either crash into the surface of a planet or moon or re-enter Kerbin's atmosphere and burn up. It doesn't always work out. So I think I need to go through a clear up and just delete a load of debris from this save file in the tracking station, because it's starting to show its age, Lowne Aerospace 3, the third one. As in, that's the name of this save file. I've got lots of like active craft now in my solar system, and having lots of active vessels does make the game chug, particularly the loading screens. So I guess it's not really an issue for you guys because I can edit all that out, and if the gameplay is running slowly, I can speed the footage up. Like here, the footage is playing back faster than 4 times. I think it's playing back about 12 times faster than real life because the nuclear engine has a very low thrust-to-weight ratio. I've only got one of them. So it was a long old burn for me, but it was nice and quick for you guys. So yeah, like I say, all these things are mostly for me in terms of like the game running slowly because I can edit, I can change all that with the power of editing. But I do value my sanity. And, you know, so it's nice for me if I can have, like, a nicer time playing this game, and I can be more productive if the game runs better, because then it takes less time to, like, prototype vessels and stuff like that and design things. So, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to retire this save file and start a new one. Hey, maybe that can be the excuse I have to do Lowne Aerospace 3.5 or Lowne Aerospace 4, whatever I choose to call it, for the beginners with a Z. I do still plan on doing a community tech tree playthrough, guys, by the way. I haven't forgotten about that, because I know I've been promising that for a long time. In fact, my plan was to do it kind of next month or so. Like, I have like an ideas, like a spreadsheet of just ideas I have for Kerbal Space Program videos, because it's really easy to run into writer's block when you're at the stage I'm at now, where I've been playing this game for like over a decade. It's hard to think of novel mission ideas. So whenever I have an idea, I add it to the spreadsheet. So I have set video ideas for each week of a year. So I don't have to worry about facing writer's block. I can just fire up my spreadsheet like, right, what am I doing this week? Oh, I'm doing this. Let's go. And it's made things way easy, guys. I can't believe I used to not have that available to me before, because it's made things a lot less stressful having that resource. Now, one thing that's here, it's that thing that's appeared on the top left. I don't know what mod. I have lots of solar systems installed on this save file. So I've got the Promise World system, so Tune and Deb, and also the Black Hole one, the Kerbal, but that one. And I think this little thing is part of all that. And I couldn't figure out how to make it go away. I couldn't close this window. Does anyone know how to close this window? Because I couldn't figure it out. I didn't want it there in the video. So what I did was I made a quick save, and then I made a quick load, and that made it disappear. So yeah, that's what that was all about. But yeah, like I say, I haven't forgotten my promise to you guys. I will be doing the community tech tree playthrough. However, I am now mindful that we have lots of new players to Kerbal Space Program. And so going in head on with a massive modded save that looks completely unrecognizable from stock KSP might alienate some of the newer players. So I think at least for the next month, I'm going to put more emphasis into stock missions, or at least stock-alike missions. So using things like the stock-alike station parts mod, saying like, look, this is a stock rocket. This part on it is from a mod that is called this, and this is why I'm using it. Rather than just jumping in and having a game that looks completely, dare I say, alien to a newer player, I think it'd be nice to have some stock missions. So yeah, what do I have? Let me find that spreadsheet that I was just referencing a second ago. Let's see. I'd like to do a 10-year anniversary of my Akrana plan video because I really liked that, but it was very short. So I made a video about the Akrana plan, one of the coolest vehicles to come out of the Soviet Union. But it was a really short video, and I feel like I could do it a lot better. I made it back in like 2016, I think, and that was before I was doing commentaries on videos. I was just making like 4-minute long music videos most of the time in Kerbal Space Program, and so it was kind of like one of my first attempts at doing a commentary, and it was only like 5 minutes long. There was so much more I could have talked about, so I'd like to redo that mission on like its 10-year anniversary, and make a stock kind of plan, and have lots of like talking, like showing footage of like the actual Soviet vehicles, talking about the history of it and all that. I think it'll be a really fun video to do. Other things I've got written down on here, let's see. Building like a sort of a mini style starship, so with like the Mechazilla and all that, but with stock parts. I think that'd be quite cool. Expanding, but let's not add these spoilers. But yeah, I've got some ideas. For videos coming up, and yeah, I'm gonna try to stick with more of my stock video ideas rather than ones that at least heavily rely on mods. Like the community tech tree adds, to my knowledge, I haven't actually played it, but I've seen like screenshots of what it is. It uses tons and tons and tons of mods, and so I don't want to like, you know what I mean. I hope this has made sense to you guys. It is when I think once the Artemis II hype dies down a little bit and KSP's player count, I don't want it to return to normal levels, but I don't think the current player counts is going to last that long, basically. So whilst we're in this kind of peak, I feel like, you know, from a cold-headed businessman perspective, it would make a lot more sense for me to focus on kind of stock missions. Unless this video bombs horribly, and then I know maybe I should focus on mods, because my last 2 videos, actually no, I did the Artemis II recreation was stock, but then my last video was using loads of mods, and that did quite well. So yeah, I guess it just remains to be seen. But if you have enjoyed this video so far, and you haven't left a like down below, then now is the time to leave a like down below. And of course, if you've not subscribed and you've enjoyed this somehow, then you can press subscribe and ring the bell, and you get videos every Saturday. I think I've only missed like 2 Saturdays this year so far. Every Saturday I aim for, and yeah, I mean, get Kerbal Space Program videos. So there we are. And look at that, the parachutes have deployed. We're still coming down quite fast though, 25 meters per second, because A, this is a very heavy craft, and B, Duna's atmosphere is very tenuous at best. So parachutes don't do a great deal don't do very much in terms of slowing you down. It's almost more important to have them to just keep your craft like oriented, engines down for the final part of your descent, although they have obviously killed off quite a lot of our speed for our actual landing. And there we are, we have landed safely on the surface of Duna. And for those that don't know, again, if there are any new players watching who might be concerned that how am I going to land back at Kerbin, because now I've used my parachute, you can actually get Kerbals out on EVA, and then once a Kerbal is near to a parachute, you can right-click the parachute and you can repack it. So that's how you do that. We can also run all of our science experiments, which I'm doing here. We observe the goo. We've done the atmospheric pressure scans. There's the thermometer running. And there's the seismic accelerometer running. And those are all of our science experiments. Because I forgot to bring EVA science again. I always forget, guys. It's really annoying because the EVA science is really fun. But, although was that added in Breaking Ground? So that's why I wouldn't have had those parts. I don't know, whatever. So now we've got Bob coming out on EVA. just because he can restore those science experiments, though I'm not going to run like all the science experiments like I would if I was actually trying to get science points to unlock the tech tree. Like if I was trying to do this, I'm doing the air quotes thing properly, I'd have run all the science experiments in space high above Duna, then again in space near to Duna, then within Duna's atmosphere, and then when landed on Duna, and then on the ascent, run them again at a different atmospheric height, so like high in the atmosphere or the upper atmosphere as opposed to the lower atmosphere, and really maximize science that way. But I don't need to do that because I've unlocked the tech tree at this point, so I don't need the science points. And also, I didn't want this video to be, well, I mean, this video is already very long and long-winded, but I didn't want this mission to be too overblown because this was really just like I say, this mission was to atone for the terribleness of the first mission in this video. So once again, our Kerbals are going out on EVA, leaving lots of footprints. Yes, Jebediah Kerbin, the pioneer Kerbal, flew down here solo on our last mission of our space program. We learned many things, for example, bringing more fuel, and we just figured actually it was kind of stressful doing that docking before. Let's just have a direct descent, and now, because we know it's safe for a Kerbal to walk on, we can send more Kerbals down. So now we've got a landing party of 3. 2 of them look slightly worried here. I'm not sure why. I think it's because they know they're on camera. They're a bit camera shy. And there's another little beautiful shot of us looking across the vastness of the expanse that is the surface of Duna. Interesting little red rock just ahead of us there. Would have been nice to check that out, but I didn't notice it at the time, I guess. Now we can get our Kerbals back on board the ship. To be transitioning from this like extendable ladder to the ladder just before the cockpit took some effort for some reason. Yeah, Bill kept on getting stuck just here. I have sped the footage up so it doesn't look that bad, but it took a bit of mashing of the F key on the keyboard to get the Kerbal to properly like clamber onto the command pod. And yeah, then we can do the same for Bob Kerbin and indeed Jebediah Kerbin. And for anyone wondering, people often say what mods are the spacesuits. So you can see Bob Kerbin and Bill Kerbin have those really cool, like Bob's is like that green color. Bill had that cool blue color sci-fi looking suit. Meanwhile, Jebediah Kerbin has this very SpaceX looking suit. These are all part of stock KSP. They're not from a mod. I think the colored suits that Bill and Bob currently have, they're from the Breaking Ground DLC. I'm pretty sure the one that Jebediah has here, that's like clearly an homage to the SpaceX suit, I think that is just part of the base Kerbal Space Program game. It's not from one of the DLCs, I want to say. I'm not too sure. That being said, if you are a new player of KSP, I would just strongly recommend the DLCs. More so Breaking Ground over Making History, just because Making History, almost all of the things that mod adds, most of the things that DLC adds can be added using mods, but Breaking Ground, although the majority of its content can be added to the game using mods, it's just way better integrated in the Breaking Ground DLC. There aren't really many real equivalents to things like the cowl controller, and indeed it adds lots of things like EVA science and cool planetary surface features, and the robotics is great. So I mean, I know there's the Infernal Robotics mod, but again, I just like the integration that the Breaking Ground DLC does for that. So, and again, the DLCs, they go on sale for pennies, so even if you don't want to get it now because you want to save some money, just wait for it to go on sale and it'd be like a couple of quid, you know, handful of bucks, you know. Yeah, the DLCs are great. If you can only afford one, get Breaking Ground, but I mean, just get both. But either way, neither DLC is required to recreate indeed this mission or the previous mission. Why you'd want to recreate the previous mission, I'm not quite sure, but if you wanted to recreate this mission, then you don't need the DLC. And it's any Matt Lowne historians now. Oh, by the way, there go the drop tanks, and the way I set up the fuel flow priority, our tank, the remaining fuel tank on board this craft, is still fully fueled. I set it so that the engines only pulled fuel from those kind of side tanks. You can do that by, first of all, right-clicking the decouplers. It's great that I'm saying this now, right? Not when I was building the thing. But basically, you right-click the decouplers and press Enable Crossfeed. That will allow fuel to flow between the tanks. And then you can right-click the kind of central tank there and set its fuel flow priority to be kind of one notch above the side tanks. And then the game will prioritize the side tanks initially until they're all depleted. Then it will pull fuel from the central tank. And in order to do that, you need to enable advanced tweakables. So you go into the game settings from the main menu. There'll be a little tick box that says advanced tweakables. Just enable. I don't know why it's a toggleable option, because it adds so many things that I would consider essential, not advanced, essential, like auto strut. Because auto strut, like by default, rockets in Kerbal Space Program have a tendency to wobble about a bit, but Auto Strut basically adds a bunch of supplementary invisible joints between all the parts and makes things far more rigid like a real spacecraft. So that's obviously really essential, but even things like fuel flow priority, really, really brilliant. So yeah, that's another one of the things in the top 70 tips video that I'm currently working on. Anyway, as you can see, our Duna mission has concluded. Well, it's a Duna surface mission. We are, of course, still within the Duna system itself. Now we're doing our Ike landing. Not much more really to talk about here that I didn't talk about before. And let's face it, I didn't really talk about Ike. I barely talked about Ike the first time we did this. Again, it's just kind of like the Mun, but like less exciting. Although, again, we do have those plutonium-style deposits that were from No Man's Sky before it became carbon. And yeah, I found this little sort of flat-ish area here, and then I realised I was actually going to land actually on this little sloped bit instead, so that I killed off my horizontal velocity really quickly so that we'd end up coasting backward and landing on this flat area of the surface of Ike. I hope that made sense. As I was saying it, I was like, this is a weird way of speaking, but whatever. And then here comes our landing here. And touchdown. Yeah, the shock absorbers of the landing legs there are really working hard to absorb the impact. And yeah, I was looking at my fuel level and I was like, I was hoping to have about 1500 meters per second of delta V after concluding the Ike landing, so when I'm back in Ike orbit, because that would have given us loads of fuel to really easily get back to Kerbin. But we're going to be having actually less delta V than we had in the previous mission. So much for atonement, hey? But I do at least, this time, I will at least remember that transfer windows are a thing. So we could just time warp to a Duna to Kerbin transfer window, take all the guesswork out of trying to make a maneuver node. Again, I cringed when I was watching that footage. I was like, what am I doing? I think the other thing, guys, this is like an annual event on this channel, where from like mid-April, oh, what a sick flip, by the way, from mid to late April to like end of September, I'm often complaining about how hot I am in my office, because I live in England, Great Britain. And I don't know why I said that to make it sound like the two are the same, but you know, I live in England. I live in the south of England, in fact, one of the southernmost cities, in fact. So we were in the hottest region of England, and it gets quite warm, you know, in my office. Over here, first of all, our houses do not have air conditioning, and the other thing is that they're built to trap as much heat as possible. So what the result of that is that my office gets really, really hot in the summer. I bought a little thermometer. Right now, my room temperature, as I speak, it's saying 27.3 degrees Celsius. I'm going to click the little America button to translate that to Fahrenheit. So that's 81.1 Fahrenheit. So obviously that's a pleasant day if you're outside. But if you're in an airless office with no airflow, it's a bit more uncomfortable. So maybe I was just suffering from heat exhaustion or something, and that's why I couldn't figure out how to get back to Kerbin the first time I did this. I've invested in one of those, like I don't think it's the same as a swamp cooler. Basically, it's a fan with like a little mist spray in the center of it that blows air at you, and it's like cooled. And basically, this is how sad I am. I filled it up using a jug to measure exactly how big its little internal reservoir is, and then I 3D printed a jug that exactly contains that amount of water. So I can put the jug in the fridge and then just take it out, fill it up with cold water, then re-put it back in the fridge. So that's my current plan. So I've actually got it running. It's blowing freezing water at me right now. I'm really hoping that the microphone doesn't pick it up, because it does make kind of a hissing sound when it's running, and obviously the fan makes a blowy, you know what a fan sounds like, right? So I hope it doesn't get picked up by this microphone. This microphone I have is the Rode Procaster, which basically only really picks up audio from like directly, like you have to like have your mouth right next to it. Like if I move it, like I'll move it away, so it's about I'll move it to be about 20 centimeters away, and then that's how it sounds there. So I hope this sounds, and then I'll move it back to my face. So it doesn't really pick up sound that's like far away from it, if that makes sense. So things like computer fans or noises coming from outside won't get picked up by this microphone. That's the advantage of that. And I'm hoping that the noise the fan makes is quiet enough and the fan itself is far enough away that nothing gets picked up by the microphone. Let me know in the comments, was there a really annoying hissing sound for the duration of this video? Ah, and look, I'm getting a Kerbin encounter. Wasn't that far less stressful than before? So yeah, there's the maneuver node planned all out there. Again, we're going to be coming back kind of on fumes. You know, we've only got 169 nice delta V meters per second of delta V remaining, and most of that budget is going to be going into this correction burn here. But again, although I said this is good for beginners to follow along, it's probably not ideal that beginners are coming back with so little fuel to spare, but just do Duna and then come home. Or just do Ike and then go home. Or capture into the Duna system by doing an aero brake rather than using an engine burn, and you'll save a bunch of fuel that way as well. So there are ways in which you can kind of end up with more fuel than I ended up having. So yeah, I mean, I could have just designed the craft to have more fuel at this stage. It'd be better. But I kind of wanted to keep things simple. Like, one thing I could have done was have more than 2 drop tanks on the lander. So maybe have 4 drop tanks arranged in like an asparagus setup. That would have saved a little bit of fuel there. But again, I just wanted to keep things nice and simple. And here we are arriving at Kerbin, and we are going to be doing an aero capture here because we have not got the fuel to circularize at Kerbin. But, you know, we can use Kerbin's atmosphere and make use of our heat shield. Here we are separating right at the last moment so we can watch the fireworks display that will be the lower stage exploding. And there's no nuclear engines in this stage, so there's less risk, I feel like there's inherently less risk about a non-nuclear reactor exploding near you versus a nuclear reactor. But then I'm not a nuclear engineer, so I cannot say that with complete authority and certainty. But here we are. Look at that beautiful. So those beautiful re-entry flames are part of, why did I say flames so weird? Those beautiful re-entry flames are part of the mod Firefly. Cannot recommend that mod enough. And yeah, now we can just deploy our chute. Of course, I have to deploy it manually because I've already staged it. I've already deployed it via the staging button when we landed on Duna. So now I'm going to right click to deploy it manually. I guess we could have set up with action group, but whatever, doesn't matter. And yeah, sadly we are coming down at night, so we can't really see the water below us, but I can confirm that we are indeed going to be splashing down in the water because, see, I'd already done this. I'd already seen this because I filmed the mission. But speaking of which, that does mean the mission is now over, and therefore the video is now over. So that of course means that it's time to thank my Patreon supporters and YouTube channel members who make all of this content possible. Again, if you want to join their ranks, then you can do so by clicking the relevant links below. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you're new, welcome to the channel. Welcome to KSP. It's a pretty good game, in my opinion. You know, definitely in the top 10. You know, KSP. I'd say it's all right. You know, I like playing it from time to time. We can just zoom out, and then the video it's over now.